So good evening. I am Dr. Rasan Harris, CEO of Citizens Committee for New York City. So excited that you're here with us tonight for this Borough Huddle. I'm such a fan of your Borough President, Ms. Vanessa Gibson. She, as always, is doing multiple things at the same time, but still made time to come visit us. And when she signed off, she gave us such a word that was such a blessing. Madam Gibson is such an inspiration, represents the Bronx extremely well, and is always there for the people. So a little bit about Citizens Committee, for those who do not know, we were founded in 1975, and we're here because we believe the notion that every New Yorker, when they come together with someone else, can make a difference in improving their neighborhood. We provide access to funding, we provide access to training, and we also provide access to a platform to make sure that all the ideas and solutions and dreams that people have for New York are heard and gathered, and make sure that stakeholders hear you. So tonight's forum is an example of one of those things. And put more simply, we want to make sure that what might have previously been invisible is visible, because we know that all New Yorkers should be at the center and at the table for making decisions, as opposed to being on the menu. So I want to just thank everyone for showing up. I want to make sure that you're in an attitude of curiosity and having questions, and please put those forward in the chat as we go along. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce your Borough President, Madam Vanessa Gibson.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Vanessa L. Gibson, the Bronx Borough President. Excited to have everyone here. Citizens NYC for our Borough Huddle series, the Bronx version. Very excited to have all of you here with us. I was elected back in 2021 to begin serving as the 14th Bronx Borough President. I am the first African-American and the first woman to ever serve in this position, and very happy to say that, very excited about the opportunities that lie ahead as the Chief Executive of Bronx County. And prior to that, I served as a member of the New York City Council, representing District 16 for 8 years. And prior to that, I served as a member of the New York State Assembly for 4 years. So it's really an exciting opportunity to be here and really to lead a borough of 1.5 million residents and families that bring such diversity from a cultural perspective, lots of opportunity, lots of potential and promise that the Bronx has. And I'm so thankful to Citizens NYC. I've had the opportunity to work with the organization over my years in the city council, and I really appreciate a lot of the conversations that you have and really giving us a space to talk about a lot of the critical issues that matter to our residents and the clients we serve, and really making sure that we talk about quality of life issues around public safety, reimagining the criminal justice system, what that looks like, the intersection of culture and education, supporting good paying jobs, and looking at really achieving a balance in a lot of the work that we do. So it's not easy. It's been 9 months. I've been serving with Mayor Eric Adams and his administration, and we've had a lot of challenges, a lot of trying things that have happened to us in the borough, but we have stood tall. We have overcome a lot of things, and we really turned our pain into purpose and really turned our storm into strength. So I'm very grateful for that. So I know you have questions for me tonight, but I definitely want to expand on what our vision and our blueprint is for the borough. Very happy to say September 1st, we released a 200+ page strategic policy plan that is required by city charter. Every 4 years, each borough president must submit a strategic policy plan that outlines their vision for the borough. And we are the first borough president to do so. Very excited. Not that I'm in competition with my fellow borough presidents, but I am. And I really appreciate a lot of the labor that was put into this document. It's available on our website, and it really outlines our agenda for everything you can think of, from housing to economic development, climate change, environmental justice, looking at expanded ferry service, Metro North expansion, transportation, cooperatives, worker cooperatives and CLTs, financial literacy, and how we can really build a more vibrant and healthier and stronger Bronx. It identifies a lot of the challenges we face. It gives data and statistics, but also we are very solutions driven. So we come up with recommendations that we believe this administration should adopt. And as the borough president, I have to work with every level of government, not just local, but state, working with Governor Kathy Hochul and her team and administration, as well as our federal legislators, our US senators, and our members of Congress. So I'm very excited to work with all of you. And I want to thank you, Citizens NYC, for hosting our Bronx Borough Huddle series. And I look forward to the conversation tonight.
One thing I want to say is I'm just so thankful that you show up for us all the time, and want to highlight the fact that we have an All In for NYC week that's coming up October 17th through the 21st. There'll be opportunities for folks to volunteer, opportunities for folks to hear great ideas and solutions for the city, as you discussed, and also an opportunity for us to celebrate and get more funding so that we can get it back out to the people who are attending. And so I put information about that in the chat. And without further ado, I believe I'm tossing it to Dr. Leslie Branch that will help facilitate the rest of our conversation.
Yes, so thank you so very much. And I echo the sentiments of CEO Dr. Hassan Harris. Thank you so much, Madam President, for showing up and just for being in community. So we're going to get the conversation kicked off. So the first question that I have for you, Madam Borough President, is this. Broadly speaking, public safety is on the mind of New Yorkers, and there are 5 pillars to public safety, and those pillars include economic and food security, education and community, housing and physical environment, physical and mental health, and stability and personal safety. And so we have been collecting information from and data from Bronxites, and they have indicated to us that the top 3 quality of life concerns for them are education, which registers at about 21% of the those who responded, affordable housing, about 18%, and rounding out the top 3 are parks and green spaces at about 12%. And so my question for you in that regard is, what are some concrete strategies that you can share with your constituents that are being deployed to address these concerns?
Sure, thank you so much. So all of the priorities outlined are similar to exactly what I feel are important to the residents and families of the Bronx. Education is the gateway to the future. If we do anything as elected officials, we must invest in public education so that our children have a quality and sound education from pre-K all the way to college and careers and vocation schools and CTE programs, and making sure that we also have a pathway to the construction and the career industry as well, realizing that not everyone has a pathway to college, but you should have a pathway somewhere. The recently adopted budget in June for FY23, the borough president gets a portion of that, and we were able to allocate almost $15 million. 59% of my capital budget was allocated to education, to Reso A funds for our schools, our elementary, middle, and high schools, charter schools, as well as District 75 schools, technology upgrades, capital infrastructure, hydroponic labs, Chrome notebooks, upgrades to computer labs, science labs, A+ STEM labs, a lot of technology, and really components that allow our schools to be successful. Resources that are necessary to make our schools more well-rounded and to provide the critical components for our students. I'm a huge fan of school-based health clinics. I think every school should be a community school. I support at minimum full-time nurses, school counselors, as well as social workers in our schools. We have a high population of students in temporary housing. And now what we're seeing with an influx of asylum seekers and migrant families are more families coming into the school system that are traumatized and need access to holistic care and wraparound services and trauma-informed care and healing centers. That is critical to the work we do. So education, I'm all about. I visit schools every week. I'll be at a school tomorrow. And not only do I make sure the schools have funding, but I support our principals, our teachers, all of our administrators and paras, and it's really been marvelous to see the work we're doing in the Bronx. We have to raise the graduation rate in the borough. We have some of the lowest graduation rates in the city, but many schools are doing exceedingly well, and they are models to be followed across the borough. My Brother's Keeper, an initiative out of the Obama administration, very proud to have fellows in my office that do this work with young men of color on recruitment of male of color teachers, as well as mentors. We do that, and we also have My Sister's Keeper as well. So we've been doing work on women and girls empowerment in our schools. Housing is something that I think is a fundamental right. Every resident, every New Yorker should be afforded affordable, quality, and safe and dignified housing. I'm a big fan of specialty housing, which I designate for veterans, domestic violence survivors, youth aging out of foster care, older adults, congregate level housing. I am a supporter and was the prime sponsor of Right to Counsel, which passed in the City Council in 2017, that mandates anyone facing eviction in housing court is given a right to a free lawyer, because we know that many families today are rent burdened. They spend over 30% of their income towards rent. But guess what? The challenges are we don't have enough supply to meet the demand. We have an overwhelming shelter system, 55,000 individuals and families with school-age children, and we don't have enough housing. So we have to build more housing and expedite the process, because it takes about 12 to 18 months for any construction project. We also have to have more set-asides for formerly homeless families. We have to have a pathway to ownership so that people can look at owning property and building equity and not being a tenant for the rest of their lives. We have to look at worker cooperatives where we have worker-owned businesses, and we really have to do more to build senior and veteran housing. I'm a super supporter of open space. Roberto Clemente State Park, Pelham Bay Park, Van Cortlandt, Crotona, all of our playgrounds, community gardens, our green thumbs. We have to do more to amplify the purposes of our open space. Along the Harlem River, along the Bronx River, we have all this opportunity to build. We have a lot of programs like Bronx River Alliance and others, and we have to use them as a way to cultivate more jobs and green jobs and building the economy, more sustainable opportunities. So we're a big fan of that. And what we've also done in the budget is funded parks upgrades, as well as activating some of our green spaces, because you all understand, as much as we provide stable housing, good jobs, quality healthcare, and access to open space, which attributes to health and wellness, that's how we get the asthma rates down, the obesity rates down. That's how we deal with diabetes, lupus, fibroids, and so many other health disparities that people live with every day that are totally preventable.
Wow, that is certainly a lot. And definitely, you know, you're spot on. My next question for you is this. So there is much to be said for the power of the collective. And there are many wonderful grassroots community leaders working in their Bronx communities and neighborhoods who are doing the work to address some of the quality of life issues, not only, you know, we saw in our data, but some that you have raised as well. And they are doing the work to mitigate the impact. And so how can Bronxites partner with your office to scale up their work to have a greater impact?
Definitely. Well, I encourage every resident to be involved in some way and making sure that your community is where it should be. And so I encourage anyone, if you're not a member of a community board, a precinct council, we have neighborhood advisory boards through DYCD. We have community advisory boards through our public hospitals like Lincoln, North Central, Jacoby, Gotham Morrisania, Gotham Tremont, and Gotham Belvis. Those are our public healthcare institutions. Every one of those has a CAB, and we make appointments, and so does Health and Hospitals. We have a lot of vacancies, so if you have a priority, a passion for healthcare, please reach out to us, because we're trying to do heavy recruitment. We also have a number of different organizations on the ground that are very active, Adopting a Park, Loving the Bronx. The Bronx is Blooming. It's doing work in the East Bronx on capping the Cross Bronx, environmental justice work. We have groups like The Point that's down in Hunts Point that help to develop Hunts Point Forward, which is a very comprehensive plan that will really invest in Hunts Point along with Community Board 2 and others. We have the Bronx SWAB, which is Solid Waste Advisory Board. And this is a group of environmentalists, they're activists, they represent different organizations, and they meet once a month. So we have now reactivated that, and we're working closely with them on EJ, climate justice, electric vehicles, electric charging stations. We're trying to revamp our buses to be totally electric. We're trying to look at activating open spaces, pedestrian plazas. We're trying to really make our streets more livable and workable, and sharing them with not just drivers, but pedestrians and cyclists alike. We have opportunities where we can develop Friends of Parks groups. So some of our larger parks like France Siegel, Joyce Kilmer, Crotona Park, Claremont Park, we have Friends of groups. So these are organizations, they're 501c3s, they get funding from elected officials. We help amplify the voices around cleanliness, around dog runs, amphitheaters, proposals to enhance the park, renovations to the park, also looking at programming during the holiday season and all year round. So there's a lot happening in the Bronx. And the challenge sometimes is for residents to find an organization that they can connect with that shares their values. Because a lot of times you don't know who's out there. What we're trying to develop in this office is something that's never been done before, but almost like a directory of your businesses, of your bids and your merchants association, the Chamber of Commerce, different organizations from parks groups to advisory groups, to friends of groups, to taxpayer organizations, depending on where you live. We have a lot of them, and we categorize it by community board from 1 to 12. So these are things that we're developing and are in process. And we also have the Bronx Tourism Council. So we've been trying to reactivate that, because there was a time we used to do tours in the borough to raise tourism and talking about some of the landmarks and cultural institutions like the Zoo, Botanical Gardens, Wave Hill, Mind Builders, Pregones, Ghetto Film School. So many incredible cultural groups that are doing amazing work every single day with young people and with young adults, and just amplifying their voices. So there's a lot of things that can be done. I encourage anyone to work with our office, because we are, redeveloping a youth council. So we're working our education unit. It existed about 30 years ago in this office, and it's never really been activated. And now we want to reinstitute the youth council for the borough president's office. So every summer we get a group of summer interns that come from the local colleges and high school students. They get internship experience and they get credit. We can help them with stipends and college prep. And then also during the year, we've been getting a lot of inquiries about all year round youth orientations and internship opportunities. So that's something we're looking to do. So a lot of this is being talked about, and certainly it's on my radar. We just have to put it in implementation. My main focus right now has been filling these vacancies on my CAB, my NAB, my CEC, and my community boards, which have vacancies depending on where you live. So we can share that information and activate that. It's on our website to make sure that you can talk within your network to find some diverse applicants. We're very deliberate in what we're doing. So we want to make sure that all of these entities reflect the borough, different professions, different ages, different geographic locations, so that everyone's not concentrated in one neighborhood. But I think a lot of times people feel isolated because they haven't been engaged. And that's what we're trying to do to make things different in this office.
So that is absolutely amazing. And I just want to, lift up a couple of things that you said. Number one, so civic engagement, you just spoke to a myriad of opportunities that people in community can be civically engaged. So definitely reach out to the borough president's office with regard to some of those appointments that she's trying to make. But also, I remember being a little girl, and I remember the phrase was, the Bronx is burning. But Boogie Down, let me tell you, under BP Vanessa L. Gibson, the Boogie Down is not burning, the Boogie Down is blooming. So props to you, Madam.
Thank you.
Yes, props to you, Madam Borough President. So my last question for you, and then we will transition to our invited community group, is this. So there are Citizens NYC grant winners who have gone on to elected or appointed office and who are leaders in New York City agencies. And so share with us, what is your why for public office, and what advice would you give to those thinking about elected or appointed positions?
Oh, I love this question. I am often asked my why, and I think my why is why not? This is a season and this is a moment of opportunity for women of color to step up like never before. We are redefining positions that were never designed for us. People never saw us having a seat at the table. Not only are we at the table, but we are making decisions on behalf of all of our brothers and sisters. And women lead and govern differently. We are just built differently. And a lot of times we have to encourage ourselves because it's hard to raise money. It's hard to run a campaign. It's hard to get elected. It's hard to put yourself out there because a lot of times people want to put you in a traditional box of what they expect women to do as the household, keepers, maintaining the household and taking care of children, but not being the principal, the educator, the first responder, the essential worker. When if you look at the COVID-19 pandemic, 2 years, most of the frontline staff were women and women of color. They were the nurses, the cafeteria workers, the lunchroom aides, the school crossing guards, the school safety agents. They were women and they were out there. And a lot of times we've never been recognized for doing this work. But I feel like it's our moment, it's our time, it's our season. I want our little girls to be encouraged to be queens. I want our brothers to be kings, to hold their head up high and to realize no matter where you live, no matter where you come from, your block should never block your blessing. But a lot of times you understand it's who you know and how you know them and how you can get your foot in the door. It's about civically being involved and being civically engaged. It's about your voting power. It's about your people power. But we have the power and sometimes we don't know it. And so we have to be taught. If you know better, you do better. And a lot of times it's our people, the vulnerable New Yorkers that work so hard every day, struggling paycheck to paycheck just to make ends meet. That single parent that's working 2 jobs and going to school, taking care of his or her children. That single father holding it down for his kids. That's the story of the Bronx, and that's the story of New York City. So I feel privileged to be in this seat. And I know that a lot of people are rooting for me, but I know there are some people that don't wish me well, and that's okay. The people that wish me well versus the people that don't wish me well, I still represent all of them as the Bronx Borough President. And at the end of the day, I have a responsibility to make this borough better than the way I got it on January 1st. And from my blueprint to my strategic plan, to my vision, to the work that we're doing in so many areas, to the engagement, the partnerships, we are going to do better because we deserve better. So many of our residents have been conditioned to think the way they live is normal, like they can never live better. And it's not acceptable. It's not right when you have a good paying job and you can't even afford to live and stay in your neighborhood. You have to move on up and then you don't come back to the neighborhood that raised you. And sometimes you give up. And so we are just trying to look at all the different opportunities, look at the vibrancy of the borough, the diversity, the potential, the promise that the Bronx holds, working with all these different levels of government, all these different elected officials, all these different personalities, and somehow find a balance. And it's not perfect. We are imperfect people trying to make this place, this society, a better place. But I feel privileged to be here. And so my last words to anyone that wants to get involved and get into politics is to find a way to get your foot in the door. Find an internship, because that's how I started and many others, and intern for someone or an industry that you like. Whether it's a nursing home, it's a rehab center, it's a hospital, it's an FQHC, it's an elected official office, your community board, whatever it is where your interests are, find a way to get an internship, paid or unpaid, because you have to look at the long term. Don't think that a 6-figure salary is going to fall in your lap on day one. You're going to have to do some real labor of love to get to where you want to be. So develop your short-term goals and your long-term goals, and make sure that in everything you do, you are following that plan. Don't get distracted. Don't fall off course. Don't lose sight, because there will be some distractors that will pull you to the side, but stay on course, because I promise you that your labor will not be in vain. And sometimes you got to fight the fight. You may not lose, you may not always win every battle, but you have to keep fighting, because a lot of my colleagues, they didn't win in their first election. They didn't win in their second. They didn't win in their third, and they kept at it until they won. And so don't give up, stay focused, stand in your purpose and know your value and know your worth and know what you want to bring to the table and know what you want to give back. And in doing all of that, don't lose who you are, because it's easy to change. When you rise to these levels of influence and power, you got a title in front of your name, people think that you'll change. People always tell me, stay Vanessa, stay the same person you are. And I try to do that every day, because people try to change who I am. Don't change your principles. Don't change your values and what you hold true to yourself. Don't change who you are just to get that job, because I promise you will never be worth it. But if you stay true to yourself and you stay the course and you remember every day why you started on that journey, you will never give up. And sometimes you may feel weak, but guess what? It's okay, because your weakness can either make you or break you. Don't let it break you, but let it make you and let it mold you to be the successful public servant that you truly want to be.
Wow, such words of admonition, such words of encouragement,
Thanks.
definitely pearls of wisdom.
Yes.
And I assure you, if you follow what the good
That's right.
president of the Bronx Borough president has shared with you, believe me, it's a journey. It's a journey, but they are breadcrumbs that will lead you out of invisibility into visibility, right? It's about changing the narrative. And I love that, because before we can become something, a lot of times we have to confess it.
That's right.
Right? And so start from today, everybody on this Zoom, start calling into being the things that you want. They may not have materialized at this point, but if you say it enough, it will eventually manifest. All right, so I want to now transition us to call up our invited featured grantee in the person of Rena. And Rena is from Start Lighthouse. So we're going to spotlight Rena at this point.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Rena Madani, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Start Lighthouse. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization advancing childhood literacy through a social justice lens. And I'm also proud to say that we are women-founded and women-led. And it is so surreal to be able to share our story today. Our journey as a nonprofit began during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. So during a time of shuttered schools and libraries across the community, Start Lighthouse placed the power of reading in the hands of parents and their children by building home libraries. And we began with such a modest goal of collecting 500 brand new multicultural books for our students. And shortly after, we crossed paths with Principal Danielle Keene of PSMS5, and we learned that Principal Keene was emptying out her classrooms just to pull together extra learning resources for her students during the pandemic. And so together we began hosting pop-up community events across the Bronx, where we would distribute customized literacy toolkits with brand new books and supplemental resources. And during our first distribution event, our literacy kits were gone within the hour. And yet throughout the day, many students and families kept coming back asking for additional resources. And this high touch community-based intervention continued throughout the lockdown. We also designed and implemented a social justice literacy program to help schools with the rapid shift to virtual instruction. Our curriculum helped establish inclusive learning environments where students were discussing racism, social justice, and identity in a developmentally appropriate and relevant way. And Principal Keene at PSMS5 oversaw the integration of this curriculum within the school day and throughout the summer, allowing us to touch the lives of many more students. And so the work the Start Lighthouse does in the Bronx to address quality of life concerns includes building robust home libraries with 15 or more brand new multicultural books per year, engaging family members and caregivers through community-based workshops where they become reading partners with their children. And finally, revitalizing literacy culture in public schools by leading immersive literacy experiences with BIPOC authors and artists, and reviving defunct library spaces. And so most recently, we built a Start Lighthouse Literacy Hub, where we service 615 students during the school day and after school at PSMS 5. And so our literacy hub offers interactive workshops led by resident authors and illustrators, enables students to build their own home libraries, and develops at-home reading routines by integrating families into the reading journey. And so a permanent home for our programming ensures that students continuously have a safe space to gather during the day, after school, and in the summer. And Principal Danielle Keene shares that Start Lighthouse is a family partnership. It is rare and far between to find an organization like theirs. And I'm overjoyed that Start Lighthouse has opened a literacy hub at my school, allowing them to support my students every single day and beyond. And in just 2 years, Start Lighthouse has imbued a lasting literacy culture where my students now have a love and joy towards reading. And having access to Start Lighthouse's programming and services every day will be transformative for my students as they become tomorrow's change maker and activists. And we also have heard from Mariah, who is a student at PS5, and she shares that I'm left breathless at the fact that we have a literacy hub that provides a joyous environment to me and my peers. I adore the fact that my little sisters can open up a book and find the beauty within their hair. I love hearing me too and seeing myself within the new character. At some point, I was that 5-year-old little girl yearning for that diversity. And here we are now with such access at our fingertips. This is because of Start Lighthouse. And now, today, with Principal Danielle Keene's unwavering support and belief, we have expanded to 7 schools, built home libraries for over 5,000 students in the Bronx, distributed over 21,000 brand new multicultural books to their home libraries, and delivered 500 hours of in-school and community-based literacy programming. And so we would like to let you know, through our president, Vanessa Gibson, that we are a resource and we are looking forward to working with your office to support your vision for the Bronx and to improve quality of life in our borough. And I want to thank Citizens New York City for your support and for providing us this opportunity to be in community with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Excuse me, Rena, we definitely appreciate you and we applaud you for everything that you're doing in community to help the Bronx move forward, thrive, and survive. And Madam Borough President, just to share, some stats with you. During the 2022 grant cycle at Citizens, we provided 59 grants totaling close to $150,000 to the Bronx in 2022. And again, we, in any way that we are able to, whether it is through grants, whether it is through capacity building, whether it is through thought partnership, we are, here to work with constituents in your borough and with you to help in any way that we can to continue to help the Bronx, bloom, as you indicated. And so now, moving ahead in our program. So some of the pre-screen questions that we collected prior, one was from Orain Barrett. I'm not sure if Orain is in the room this evening, but his or her question was, how can nonprofits access support and funding from the Bronx Borough President's Office?
as community services director, what we could do is to connect you to other organizations that support non-for-profits. Last month, we actually had a conversation with non-for-profits on best practices on how they could get themselves funded. And that was led by Bronx Community Foundation. So we do have the ability to connect organization to other partner that can actually support them with the work. So I'm going to drop my information, send us emails, and we're going to make sure that we could connect you to any other organization that could, potentially support you, but no guarantee. We can only connect you. As you know, when the BP was in council, she gave out a lot of money to organization, but with Borough President, it's a little bit different. But we'll continue to make sure that our CBOs and other non-for-profit can be on the ground and continue to do this job in a very successful way.
All right, David, stay with us. I appreciate you. So the next question is from Richie Pickett. I'm not sure if Richie is joining us tonight, but his pre-screen question is this: due to gun violence, is it possible to have neighborhood watches with the NYPD? And another question that is in the chat, how can the BP, or how will the BP be helping veterans and families?
I could just speak a little bit about an event with with veterans. So one of the things that I do at Borough President's Office is to really facilitate advisory council. So veterans are also one of the council that I facilitate. So even this Thursday, September 29, we are having an event called Healing Through Connection, an event that we are partnering with the Bronx VA. The goal is to connect our veterans to critical resources in the borough. So we do work with them, and we're going to continue to do that. And we have the Veterans Advisory Council. We do encourage anyone, a veterans service member who wants to join, as a way to, it's going to be like a safe space for them to, discuss about some of the issues affecting them and how to find those solutions. So that's something that I do for anyone who wants to join the event. It's going to be this Thursday from 12 to 4 p.m. And it's going to be at 851 Grand Concourse at the Borough Hall.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so, again, I think this has been time well spent. We certainly want to partner with the Borough President's Office, and we thank Borough President Vanessa Gibson for her time, for being generous with her talent and with her treasure, and for those stirring and very inspirational words. And with nothing else on the agenda, I just want to again remind you to head over to Citizens Committee for New York City's website. We have, as Dr. Harris indicated at the top of the hour, we're having an all-in for New York City week. We're going to have volunteer opportunities. We are going to have an impact summit, and just other things that are happening during the week, I want to say of October 17th. So definitely we're looking for you in community, and please, continue to look out for one another, continue to be your brothers and your sisters keepers, and whatever it is that you can find to do in community, please do that. There are no big I's and no little U's, and every little bit that we do gets us that much closer. So signing off for now. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Have a wonderful evening, and see you next time. Take care.